There's John. How you doing?
Hi, Laura. How's it going?
Good, good, good. What's new?
Oh gosh, getting busy at work again. I'll tell you that. We uh
Aha.
we just finished a chip and now we gotta do DD2. Doing the DD2 now. Next March is the deadline for DD2.
Cool. Cool. Keeping you busy.
Incredibly busy. Yeah, I'm very happy about that. That hardware has a lot of work these days.
Yeah, that definitely good. I never really knew what you did for
It's
IBM.
a Z Metis chip, the
Cool.
mainframe, the Z16 computer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very, very cool.
Mhm.
Nice. Hi,
Yeah.
James. Oh, you're on mute. That's okay.
Hello, Laura. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
Hi, James.
I just remembered the meeting literally 1 minute ago.
Yeah, well, yeah, we'll have to see who all we have because I sent the reminder out
Yeah,
and
no, I know. I think this is probably like my first 9 a.m. meeting for a long time. I don't really have meetings at 9 a.m. So I was like, oh, right, we're at a meeting.
well,
So,
and I think we did it probably because today was the day people could meet. But I had a 10 a.m. meeting because the housing task force meets at 10, and now the housing task force just yesterday decided to move their meeting. So I think that's why we met early
no,
because
I'm fine to meet early. It's so rare that I'm like, oh, right, I have to be something at 9 a.m.
well, I just hope we get sign committee. It's great. We have both of you. However, we hopefully we get a group. So we'll give it a couple of minutes
Okay,
and
no
see what
worries.
we see who we get.
See who shows up.
Well, Lori, I know Lori remembered it.
Okay.
Well, she remembered it yesterday anyway because she was texting me. And the only one that said they couldn't make it was Wendy.
Oh, okay. And I will have to run at 10 because I need to get to the store by 10:30 and have to do a couple things to be able to make that happen.
Well, that might be why we met at 9 also.
Yeah.
So so okay. So I'll admit, yay, Lori. Lori's joining.
Oh, she is.
There she is. Hi, Lori. Oh, connecting to audio. So Lori, wait, you're on mute. Ah, she's still on mute.
Okay, now I'm not on mute anymore, right?
Yay, correct, correct.
Okay.
So I don't know how many people are gonna remember that we had the meeting today, or how many people, as James said, it's 9 o'clock. We never meet at 9 o'clock. Yeah. So anyway, I think I'll get going, and we hopefully we get more people added. But I think we can move forward and have some good discussions. There, I'm just making my notes here. So I did not send out any documentation, but the first thing I'm going to do, I will share my screen because I was, one of the things I said I want to do is reorganize the documentation, which I did. And I'm keeping an eye on who's joining. James says he has to leave at 10. So,
Yeah, I have another Zoom also after this meeting.
right. Okay. So, that's okay. So we're just going to kind of buzz forward here. And there we go. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'll try to keep an eye on if anybody else joins because I need to keep an eye on that too. So what I did with the document, and I just got the final touches on it today. So what I did on the document, and I'm going to do a save as just in case I want to add anything to it for today. So I'll do the save as so I can be changing it. 0822. To make the documentation more useful, I reorganized it and I added headers. So if one were to take, if you go into, I'll just show you real quick because I do this all the time. If you were to look at view up here on Word, and if you click the navigation pane, that's when you see all the stuff over to the left. So I put headers in here so it's easier for us to navigate the document, because in the first meeting it wasn't so bad, but I'm building a cumulative document and it made sense to make it easier to navigate. So what I have, the sections of it, you know, who's attending the meetings, including guests, because we know who was actually assigned to the sign committee, but I'm treating everybody who joins as a member in a way. If that ever reaches the point where it drags us down, I'll quit doing that. But I appreciate what everybody has to offer. So it's, you know, right now it's a value to have everybody just speak up. So I'm treating everybody like a member, even though they may not be. But anyway, so we have the attendance, we have the reference documentation, we have draft plans, because I tried to organize between the meeting notes is in the meeting discussion section, but the draft plans is as we make decisions of what we think we want to do. I'm putting that in a section, and that will definitely evolve. It's not ready for prime time. It's not, nothing's cast in concrete, nothing's ready to present to anybody. But this is where, if we're making decisions, here's where I think we're headed as a group with decisions. And then the next steps and meeting discussion, I've got the steps that we're going through. And then as we touch on these topics in meetings, I'm going to add an entry for what got talked about. So that's how it all lays out. And we're really up here, well, kind of on steps 2 and 3, I added, and this is from what John said at the last meeting, which I appreciated, was, well, we should be looking at the law first. And I'm kind of jumping into topics, but every sign committee member ought to read the current law. So that's step 1. And I put a topic down here of where it is. But I'll put it up top here as well. But so I've included that. So I did add a step 1 saying everybody ought to read the law. And let me come back up and put this in the reference here. So the reference is in two places. Let me just do this little fix while we're here. Anyway, I'll fix that. Let me just get rid of that. Okay, I just want to get that fixed. Alrighty. So I did add that as a step number 1. Everybody read the current. So at one point we'll check on that, but I'm not going to focus on that today. But you know, because we got you know, only 3 of us on the call besides me. So anyway, I did that as an item that everybody ought to know that. So we already have ideas of where areas that we want to be touching on. So the main thing I wanted to do today, besides explaining how I reorganized the document that I'll be sending out. So besides explaining that, I think the main thing that we want to do, and if people, well, I know John's here who wasn't with us, but we did actually begin, Laurie and Rob and I did actually begin the survey. And I want to thank Laurie because she put together the draft set of questions. I did tweak it a bit. But in any event, thanks to Laurie for getting all the questions out there. And then Laurie updated the document also, because one thing we thought would be good is we hand out to people, to businesses that we also have a information of how to get to the law right on the page we hand out. So I know that Laurie then updated it again. So we did start the door-to-door. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, me?
I heard something. Okay.
I think that was my computer scratching. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. So we did start the door-to-door. It was Laurie, Rob, and I on the first day. I know James was hoping to join us, but we wound up, well, for better or for worse, we started at the CVS end, and we really just did, actually between CVS and 375 is pretty much what we did, and we did do CVS. So I thought we did a really good job. I need to consolidate what, I have a different document that talks about our, you know, who we saw, and I want to add to that document feedback we got back. I think we got 3 feedbacks so far. So for the canvassing, for the door-to-door for businesses, we've seen 3 so far, and we'll need to consolidate a document with our findings there so far. So that's kind of the status on that. And I just want to go make sure I don't have anybody else in the waiting room. I don't think so. Okay. So, and I'm happy to pick up. I'm not available for the next week and a half, but after Labor Day, I'm happy to pick up and start being part of the the door to door.
Yeah, and I can do it. I can do it before Labor Day, and I'm happy to, coordinate with whomever, whether it's, James and Rob or Wendy or Chris or anyone else. I know they haven't been on the last couple of meetings, but I'm happy to sort of spearhead it until you come back.
And thank you. Well, you spearheaded it to begin with too. I just participated. That's all I did, but you spearheaded it. And thank you very much for doing that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay. And it was great. It was actually wonderful talking to the business owners. They appreciated that we were there. They appreciated that we cared and that we were asking their opinions. I saw our return rate was less than 50%, I would say, in terms of documents. But in any event, it was great having that face to face, and we learned things while we were there that helps me think of things we want to think about, because we were at there are two tattoo parlors in that plaza, in the Nana's Plaza. There were two tattoo parlors, and the one of them had this beautiful sign that they had created that they had stuck to the side of their building, and they were told, well, it's a sign, it's too big, you got to take it down. And I'm still of the question that says, if you've got something on the side of the building, do we still need to worry about that 10 square feet maximum? But and anyway, because it was beautiful, it was artistic, it was great, but it was over 10 square feet. So
yeah. And they had just to jump in, for those who hadn't seen it, it's in the style of the old-fashioned postcard where it says, welcome to Woodstock, and it had trees and sky and things in the letters and stuff like that. So it was it definitely was artistic. It wasn't just tattoos here. I think it just said Woodstock Tattoo Studio down at the bottom, but it wasn't even, it was pretty.
Yeah, I thought so too. So it's things like that that we're learning that are good for us to consider as a sign group. So anyway, that's kind of the status of what's happened since we met last. I thought what we would do on this call is I really just wanted to go through this draft plan still evolving. Oh, the other thing that I'll say too, you'll see by listing everything out here on the left-hand side, I did. Rob had said, well, we really ought to do maps of streets and businesses. We really ought to have a focus there. And so I did list it in the document, but I put it on as a follow-on project because, our mission right here is doing the sign law, and it's a great idea, but I did list it as follow-on. So that's how I handled that. So I thought what we would do here is just go back through the draft plans and make sure I have things right in terms of what we're thinking as a group so far and other considerations that we want to put. And this is in the, again, I thought I heard something. So I've organized it again to say, as we have discussions, our next steps is the steps 1 through 7. These are our steps that we're going to go through as a committee, and then discussion items get put in here. But again, the draft plans is if I synthesize out what is it we think we want to do, what am I hearing that we want to do, put it here. So specifically, and we really haven't we just talked about side of building a little bit there, but and even just add a art versus okay. So we'll just go down through here. So for the sandwich boards is where we've really been focusing so far. The things I just want to make sure that, again, that I've got everything is worth thinking so far. For sandwich boards, we're considering allowing. We need to say where, when, season, weekend, weekday, special event, size, and safety. So we talked about, and James, this is where you had given input, and I tried to update it to match what you had said, but it might not be totally right. What we want to prohibit on sidewalks under 48 inches everywhere. But then, James, I know you had said you thought that we ought to don't allow them on the main street, but do allow them on the side street. But I think that I maybe didn't totally incorporate what you said. And this is because you had said some streets ought to have them, some streets shouldn't have them. We did say they'll allow on lawns, courtyards, not encroaching the 48-inch sidewalk. And we can allow them on stoops and parking lots. Maximum one per business only on the premise of that business. Exception, government entities are exempt from the sign law. So when the community center has a voting today sandwich board, that's okay. Only allow when business is open, remove and close for the day. Only approve it if the town lawyer agrees we're not causing safety or liability issues. And we talked about the sandwich board, 10 square feet per side, 48 inches, maximum height, maximum width 36 inches, and maximum footprint 36 by 36. No trip hazard placement or placement that forces a pedestrian to have to go into the road to walk around the sign. Pedestrian safety is the focus and priority. Need equal enforcement, not selective. So, and these two things I just added because we probably need to do a little more discussion on these things, which is the sign. I'm assuming that this is all the hamlet or the hamlet business district. And I'm assuming that if we're considering sandwich boards, we're not considering them outside of the hamlet, but unless I'm mistaken, but I mean, we're just allowing them within the hamlet, I think. And I can look up specifically what that zone name is. And then the time of year, weekends versus weekdays, we may want to say something about that. The other thing I wanted to throw out, and I'm just going to add it here as a point of discussion to limit total. And I always say permitting because that's saying, hey, we're going to add another layer of red tape and more work for the town. However, as has been said on this call, there's a worry that once you allow sandwich boards, everybody's going to do it. It'll be an eyesore because everybody's going to do it. And the one kind of brainstorming idea I had was, well, maybe if we do a permitting and maybe we say, well, we don't want more than 50, even 50 is a big number, but we don't want more than 30. I don't know, whatever number we pick. But then permitting might be a way to limit the total number. So kind of our discussion today, I just was hoping we could recap on what do I have right here, what's wrong here, to make sure that I'm capturing our current thought. And do we have things you want to say about business district, time of year, weekends versus weekdays for permitting? Because some things we may want to permit in the off season, like in January when nobody's on the road, but you walking the sidewalk, but you have one tourist wants to know which restaurant is open. Maybe January it's okay to have sandwich boards. So I just thought we'd have some discussion to hone in on those topics.
Yeah, I just wanted to the thing I don't see here that I think I consider still sort of under discussion is in the off season and on weekdays, how to even allow something that encroaches a bit onto the sidewalk on the main streets for signage. And possibly this is something that we can discuss a little bit if we do more visiting of the businesses with Lori and all that, if we get into the main part of town. That's sort of more the area where it gets tighter because there's less courtyards and stoops and lawns, and some would argue less need for signage because you're right in the middle of town. But I would argue that there are just times of year during the week where it can, probably not until like November starts to get kind of quiet, and then of course December picks up. But there's just like about 4 or 5 months, I'd say, where you could drive through town on a certain weekday and think everything is closed. and it just I mean, I know town is changing, and in the post COVID it suddenly has had a more uptick in business year round, but at least prior to COVID, because my memory is really hard with this, because it seems like it's been hard to judge the normal season still. And I feel like just now this year, we might be getting into what it normally is going to look like every year. So, I hope, September will be nice and busy, but sometimes even September can die when all the parents are busy, with their kids with extracurricular, and nobody's doing day trips, because they're busy with getting everything together for fall. And, so it's just that maybe it's just something to, when we walk through that part of town, we can kind of look at, because I sort of know which are the businesses that Oriole 9, Joshua's, the old Joshua's,
Mhm.
used to put out a sandwich sign and it'd be sort of like, oh, that's right, Oriole 9's open today, and it could be very helpful, especially like at 11:30 in the morning when you're, trying to figure out where you could grab lunch or something on a quiet Tuesday. So I don't know. Maybe we just kind of look at that a bit when we walk through town.
So the restaurants versus not restaurants, I think, and you've indicated this before, is that it's really the restaurants that the tourists want to know about, right?
Mainly the restaurants. I mean, it's, I don't want to speak for all the businesses that much, because I want to make sure everybody, that, I mean, I know I'm open every day, and so that's one of the rarities, but certain other businesses, when they are open, they are sometimes the only one open too. Oh, the only other thing is on the side street thing, you do have it in there. When we get into the center of town, you'll see like, these, Deanie's Alley and a couple other like the side street where Woodstock Yoga is sort of across from the shuttered gas station. Is that gas station ever going to become anything? I'm about to buy it and make it a gas station. I swear.
I mean, I just keep hearing that it's the fuel tank issue.
I am sure it's the fuel tank issue. Yeah, I know, and I just wish there was some way to resolve that, because it's just such a shame.
Well, I also called them, by the way. I called the phone number on that and said, by the way, what are you asking? 1.5 million. Well, so if anybody bought it for 1.5 million, then they would have to, they'd have to do a ton of work.
And they have to get rid of the oil tank, and they have to deal with the environmental things, and that's probably another couple $100,000. So
yeah, I mean,
it's
a brownfield.
The asking price, I thought was crazy, but
I know.
Anyways, because of all the work, it's not ready to go. It's not a property that you buy and it's ready to go. It's a property you buy, and then you'd have to, anyway,
pass a bunch of environmental tests and have a lot of work done in it. Yeah, it's gonna be a thing. But anyways, hopefully somebody will take that on someday. But anyway, so that like road right across from there, where there's some businesses right down that little road, that's where we were talking about the side streets for allowing signage, because you can, when we walk, you can kind of see when you look down the street, man, I think there's anything. And I know they're going to open that new Indian restaurant there. And, it's definitely, you're a little bit more challenged to get people to say, oh, wait, there's something down here. And so that's the side street thing.
One thing, if I could jump in.
Yeah.
I was looking at the bullet point up there that says no trip hazard placement or placement that forces a pedestrian to have to go into the road to walk around the sign. Pedestrian safety is the focus and priority. We're not taking into account people in wheelchairs. So I think the language, we're assuming that everyone can walk. Most people can't, but we're assuming that everyone can walk. So I think we need to take that into consideration, because, you may be able to step around something, but can you roll around something?
Right.
No, you're right. I mean, I think, I could sort of show you with my store when we get to it that we used to put a sandwich sign right out in front of our front door, and that would definitely limit the width of the sidewalk for what could get by. I would kind of show you that I could lean a sandwich sign on the corner of my building, which wouldn't be impeding the sidewalk as much. And that would
like you did with the hornet's nest warning.
Exactly, right, with the hornets. Exactly, but even more sort of, so it's facing going up and down Tinker Street, but it's not into the sidewalk area. So I wanted to look at, like Oriole 9 and things like that. Like, do they have any type of they have that beautiful hallway up to their restaurant that maybe that could, have a sign leaned against the window that could kind of let people know that, today's specials, we are open, I think there's some ways to kind of sneak some signage in around that area that isn't so impeding the sidewalk when the sidewalk gets limited, and these are businesses that don't have courtyards or grass.
Yeah, well, and the other thing that Wendy Drolma had brought up is that, for her stoop sandwich board sign, and I went online to look at companies that make sandwich boards, and they do have, these things, I think that they call minis, that are like 12 inches wide.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, they come in all sizes. Yeah,
No, what I was thinking was, possibly something, and just, we're still just spitballing here, but possibly something like an Oriole 9, where a sandwich board in the sidewalk would impede pedestrians, both walking and wheelchairs. But when you've got to go around a telephone pole, if you had something that you could, even fold, lean against the telephone pole, because
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
it's the width of a pole.
Yeah.
So, we can't remove the telephone poles, at least not until Central Hudson buries the lines. So, which will never happen. But,
Don't hold your breath, yes.
just as a sort of a general,
Yeah, I mean,
general.
I think you're right, Laura. I think there's a way, maybe even the language for that part of town, which is probably you could call it sort of the central business district, that if a sandwich board can not impede the sidewalk, and the examples for that, like you said, would be to lean against the telephone pole or to lean against my side of my building or to, to sort of sneak them in. And again, this could really just be still only weekdays. We could keep it for, the
Right.
clutter off for the weekends when we know for a fact it gets very busy, and maybe even for all summer long, because summer itself can be very busy. So it's just more for sort of that time of year when truly there's just like one person coming down the street, and it's which is a wonderful time of year. I love that time of year, but it can slightly eyeball people to be like, oh, something's open down there, or oh, let's keep walking as opposed to getting back in our car and leaving.
So let me go, I'm not going to take these one at a time here. So, and James, this is a good question for you because you were the one that was saying where we should prohibit or where we shouldn't prohibit. And I think I didn't quite get it right. So prohibit on sidewalks under 48 inches everywhere. And I put including Tinker Street, Mill Hill Road, and Rock City Road sidewalks. But then you had at one point said you're really looking to prohibit sandwich boards on Mill Hill Road, but only have it on the side roads. So what do we want to, so what is our current thought as a sign committee about, are we allowing, so the sandwich boards, are we thinking we're going to allow them on Tinker Street, Mill Hill Road, and Rock City, as long as the sidewalk's greater than 48 inches? Or are we saying we don't want it on those main streets, we only want them allowed on side streets?
I would prefer it to say the under 48 inches, that
Okay.
there's leaves some flexibility for it not prohibiting like Lori says, wheelchairs, etc., so that if you do have a set sort of width that has to stay clear.
Mhm.
And then you could also, I don't want to complicate this too much, but if you could add in language of the days of the week or the times of the year, to kind of tighten that even more.
Right.
Just for that summer and weekend type of time, which can be the most, crazy in our town.
Mhm.
Well, so do we also, because I kind of have the weekend versus weekdays down below here, but I can
Yeah.
add it. So we want to prohibit sidewalks under 48 inches everywhere. So it doesn't really matter if it's a side street or not a side street, because if a sidewalk is, so we were talking about side streets, but then we're not really talking about side streets on the law. Are we, so, okay, well, I'll just go down through here. So, I mean, I added the word side streets because we're talking about it, but I'm not sure if the word side streets come into play because we're saying prohibit under 48 inches everywhere.
Right. Well, yeah, because right now it's a townwide, zoning is townwide, and I suppose, if the town board wanted to revise the zoning to designate certain things for the hamlet, and otherwise they could. One of the things, not to jump in with off the side street thing, because I do think it should apply to all streets, is that, our sizes of sandwich boards right now, may actually be, we may be overestimating. The 48 inches to the 36 inches. I'm happy to do a little bit more research with actually like going on to some more sites and getting some more dimensions, because we know it has to be, under 10 square feet, but we may be creating let's say it's actually the actual width is 32 inches, you know, and that's kind of the industry standard. Then we don't need to say 36, that kind of thing.
Well, and we can, and 48 is probably higher than we need.
Mhm. Yep.
42 is probably okay. I think that we'd asked, I think Linda Tiano had been on the call, and I think she said that her board was, she thought was 42 inches. So we said, well, let's add some more. But I'm okay to say, instead of 48, say 42, because that would be a huge board.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so we kind of shuffled that.
I can come back with I can look at some various websites and come back with actual dimensions. And James, I'm sure you probably have some actual dimensions on yours.
Yeah, and I'll measure mine at the store today. I can't remember. I'll just give it a quick measure.
Yeah, just so if
It doesn't
if,
seem like it's 48. That
Yeah.
that actually does seem too big.
it does seem a little excessive. I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, so put a note there. So we're talking about prohibiting sidewalks under 48 inches everywhere. Allow, if you got a lawn or a courtyard or a stoop or a parking lot, then we did say we thought that made sense. Maximum one per business, I think, makes sense, and only on the premise of the business. Exception noted that the government entity, so we don't need to make an exception for when the community center has a voting today sign. We don't need an exception for that because government entities are exempt from the sign law. So that's in there. So we're only allowing when the business is open, they need to remove the sign when closed for the day. Only approve if the town lawyer agrees we're not causing safety or liability issues. Sandwich board, 10 square feet per side. So now that we're saying 42 by 36, now that's 3 times 3.5 instead of 3 times 4, which probably is 10 square feet. So, but we're still giving a maximum and minimum, the maximum footprint 36 by 36. Well, I guess I should keep this so we can see the whole thing all at once, but I'm kind of down here now. No trip hazard placement that forces a pedestrian to have to go into the road to walk around the sign. Signage cannot impede wheelchair travel on sidewalks, which is interesting because I don't know how wide a wheelchair is. We've already said, so if a sidewalk is 48 inches, that's 4 feet. And if the sign can be 36 inches wide, that's only leaving a foot. Nobody in a wheelchair is going to go around a foot.
I mean, I just did a quick Google, and I will go into this more in depth, obviously. I just Googled sandwich board sign dimensions, and I got the most common sandwich board sign size is 24 inches wide by 36 inches high, followed closely by 24 inches wide by 32 inches high. That would, and I don't know whether that is folded or unfolded. So actually, hang on, I'm getting different information now. Another sign says sandwich board sign as a whole measures 25 by 45. The graphics displayed on it are 24 by 36. So let me retract that and let me just do some better research for the next meeting.
Well, the other thing I think we were thinking though was that, well, I mean, I didn't want to. I don't want to force, if business owners in town already have sandwich boards, I didn't want to force them to have to throw theirs out and go buy a new one because we made things smaller. But maybe we do want to make things smaller. So I think part of it, I don't know if there's a way we can get people to weigh in if they have sandwich boards, if they know the dimension of their sandwich board, because it would be interesting to know if anybody in town already owns one that's bigger than these sizes that we're talking about. And maybe we say 42 by 30 inches, maybe that's better, because 3 feet wide would be a big sandwich board. Maybe 30 is better than 36. If the standard width is 24 inches.
Well, let me do some better research, because I want to go to like maybe 4 or 5 different sites to make sure that everybody's fairly.
I'm going to measure mine I'm not at the store right now, so I can measure it today and sort of, I know mine seems to be kind of like what the standard size I seem to think people have been using.
Okay.
So and anything bigger than mine, I think would be a lot big. Like it seems like that would be.
So the other question I do have though, when we get about the no hazard trip placement and the point that was raised that you can get a much narrower sandwich board sign So I wonder whether we also ought to get the average width of a wheelchair to know, if we
Yeah,
say.
I can do that.
Okay,
I mean, I'll go to the New York State site that I got the sidewalk regulations from and see what they have.
average.
Because rather than measuring a wheelchair, I'm sure that New York State has probably figured out not just the wheelchair itself, but the room needed to maneuver. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, because I wouldn't want to, right, I wouldn't want to try it if there was not an inch to spare. I wouldn't run my wheelchair around a sign and risk falling off the curb, so for sure.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
average wheelchair width and clearance. Cool. Okay, thank you. And then we could, and I don't think so, but by saying a wheelchair has to be able to get around every sandwich board sign may prohibit sandwich board signs everywhere. Because I'm not sure how many sidewalks are wide enough that a wheelchair could get around it in the sandwich board. But we're talking about the sandwich board width can be changed. So, and we do want safety first, and we want to be, handicap accessible. So that would be my opinion. We've already said need equal enforcement, not selective enforcement. That just makes sense. So what do we want to say? So I think that the sandwich boards, I think that we're saying we're talking about the business district. We're not talking about allowing them in a not business district. And what I could do, let me just go. Well, because I forget which zone it is, but the zone that is the Hamlet business zone. So maybe we're only allowing them in the Hamlet zone because I'm thinking we don't want them allowed beyond that. But
Well,
let
and
Just
there's no
not to,
sidewalks outside of the Hamlet
not to
zone. anyway.
confuse anything anymore, but I did see a sign that I'd never seen before the other day, down at Rick's Road, for the Woodstock Spa.
Oh, well, yes.
And
yes.
I don't want to, I'm not trying to tattletale on anybody. It surprised me. I thought, oh, I'd never thought of somebody putting a sign at the end of a road that's far more of the residential start of the town area. I know this the old Glow Spa is sort of in a unique position as a commercial business, where they're located. But I saw that and I thought, oh, that's something I'd never thought of, that people would be down a road that far out of town. So I don't know. I just wanted to mention it just because it was there. And I'm not trying to say get rid of it and get them in trouble, or I don't mean that. I just mean I don't know if there's a way to address that in any way, because it might be something that'll come up. And
so I pulled up the zoning map.
if we're going to cover all ground, I mean.
Yeah. So I guess it's Hamlet commercial. Well, I mean, maybe we don't care. So maybe we don't want to restrict it.
It wasn't a sandwich sign. It was like a realtor sign.
So you stuff it in the ground.
Yeah. And it was like right at the corner of Rick's Road. So it's not exactly like on somebody's property or on somebody's,
right. Well,
lawn, or it wasn't like in the road. It wasn't like, blocking the bike lane. It wasn't anything like that. It just,
right.
I just had never seen it before. And I was like, oh, there's another sign. So,
right.
And I think they probably do need it, just because I think there probably are people, people follow their apps when they try to find a location, but and they're not really a walk-in business. It's more like, oh, if you made an appointment and you're trying to find the spa that you made an appointment at, I guess that's helpful to see that little sign being turn here, you're about to miss it,
Right. Well, and what I do know about the Woodstock Glow Spa, I think is called, right?
It was. Now it's Woodstock Spa. They just changed it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think the partners had a falling out.
They did. So there's two of them now. Yeah. One's going off to where the old New World is, and the other is, and the other is doing. That might be common knowledge yet, but that's what they're working on. And then the other set is staying at Glow Spa. So it's like they split their partnership or whatever.
So when you say New World, you're talking about the one that's down to 12 in Sawbridge,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So, okay. Well, I didn't know where they were going, but I knew that there was a split and
Yeah, they actually have a Facebook page now, so it's common knowledge. It's called something like 212 Spa or Glow 212, I think it's called.
right. Okay. Okay.
And it's
Cool.
down at the New World. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so do you have any opinions about whether, because here's the map, and so here's you have to look in the upper corner for the hamlet. So Hamlet Commercial is the yellow part up here. So do we want to restrict and say we're restricting to Hamlet, or it doesn't really matter if someone wants to
Well,
put
I think the thing that covers us in a way is, I mean, I'd have to double check a little closer, but the Hamlet Commercial, technically, that's sort of where the businesses only have sidewalks and not any lawns or things like that. I think once you get out of the commercial, people have more lawns and things like that.
So it's
that-
easier to put
that could absorb the signage. And
well,
get,
like the Bearsville complex. So maybe we don't want to say only allowed in the hamlet, because I mean there's two things here. One is, what does a business want to do, and what do the people of Woodstock want to see? So the decisions we're throwing out here, everything's going to be a balance. So it sounds like we don't want to just say, hey, it's only in the business district, although maybe we do, but we got the whole Bearsville complex, and maybe they want to put a concert today when the
yeah, I think they probably would. I know that like Nancy's Ice Cream, she's not open all the time. I imagine
right,
it would help her to be able to say, open today, so because
right, okay,
that's also a case where human nature means you're not going to pull your car into a place and park it if there's a risk they're not open. And so
right,
if you see a
right.
sandwich sign, you go, let's grab some ice cream, and I think that is a thing. So,
Okay.
so that's where it's different. When you get outside of the business district, you're literally trying to stop people from just driving by you, and you want them
Right.
to make a mental note that, oh, there's a show today. Oh, there's ice cream open right now. Oh, there's a spa right down this road, even though you'd not
Right.
drop in a spa just for the heck of it. But so yeah, that's where I'm not sure how you separate that in the language.
Well,
Well,
and sorry.
Yeah, I what I'm writing is no restriction for Hamlet commercial versus not Hamlet commercial. It's just saying we're not looking to restrict based on
Right.
Hamlet commercial.
And also, sorry, I had to jump off and take a call for a second.
Okay.
There are no sidewalks outside of the hamlet that I can think of.
Very true.
So if there is a sandwich board sign, it's going to be on
Grass,
on grass,
right. So safer, it's actually safer if it's not in the hamlet. So
Maybe there's a different language for, not to be too cute, but where the sidewalk ends.
right,
It's a different like part of town. It's a different type of, I mean, I do think, I've struggled with, oh, gee, I'd like to keep having my sandwich sign out in front of my store. But I'm realizing that when Lori said the thing about wheelchairs, that definitely, gave me pause. And I was like, oh, this is where it's just not a good thing. And it needs to be tucked to the side of the building or something, because we have to be able to keep the sidewalk,
right,
open for people to actually not just walk around each other, but to be in a wheelchair. And so that's something.
Or if the sign were not tucked next to the building, but if it were actually right on the curb, then if somebody with a wheelchair went around it, they wouldn't be risking going off the curb because they'd be going between
Right.
the signs.
If the sidewalk was wide enough the sidewalk is so different all throughout town. That's the problem. It's like every single building, it's like a new width of the sidewalk. And I mean, it's a little self-evident, I think, with certain parts of town where it's like, you can't put a sign out here because it's just too narrow. And I think maybe I think it was 48 inches you had.
Right, 40 inches,
maybe we need to have a ruler with us when we walk through town, just to look at some areas a little closer. And I'd be curious what my width is in front of my store, actually. I think I'll measure it today.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So, we're talking about business district versus not business district. Time of year, do we want to recommend changing the law based on the time of year? Because it seems maybe no sandwich boards. I mean, I'm not sure if there's a reason for a sandwich board on a weekend or holiday during the, between Memorial Day and Labor Day. Do we need sandwich boards anywhere between Memorial Day and Labor Day? Does anybody need a sandwich board anywhere? We say we prohibit them because now you got gobs of people and they're going to be tripping over them. So,
well, I think that these are the questions that we should continue to ask our businesses as we survey them, because otherwise we're presupposing, because every business is different. Like, let's say, I mean, if we say lawns are fine, regardless of the day or the time or whatever, then the woman who runs the clothing shop in the teeny weeny building in back of the Gilded Carriage can have a sandwich board on her, on the, because otherwise you have no clue whether she's open or not. Particularly.
Okay, so maybe we always allow this thing about allowing lawns, courtyards, stoops, parking lots. Maybe that's always there. Maybe the prohibit on sidewalks under 40 inches everywhere. Maybe the prohibition would be, let me just move this up here. Maybe the prohibition discussion, I'm just gonna put this in here, and let me put it in here and then you can tell me I'm wrong. So what I think we might say is prohibit on sidewalks. And here's where maybe we get into the streets, because prohibit on sidewalks on Tinker Street, Mill Road, Memorial Day, Labor Day.
Honestly, I don't agree with that, and I'll tell you why.
Well, let me just talk, and then you go. So this is just sidewalks, so this doesn't affect anything about lawns, courtyards, whatever. But this is just saying sidewalks. If you're on the main streets and you're between Memorial Day and Labor Day, to say we expect gobs of people, people are going to be walking up the street anyway. They don't need to know, is this business open or that one open, because they're probably walking down the whole street anyway. So anyway, so go ahead, Laura. You would disagree with that because?
I would say, I mean, I think we have to really and this is obviously part of the process that we're going to be doing for a while. Nothing, as you said, is remotely written in stone.
Right.
But I think our wordsmithing has to be very careful, because say, for example, we say prohibit on sidewalks under 48 inches everywhere, or we reword that to prohibit sidewalks if 48 inches of clearance is, not present. And I'm not suggesting we change that now. Then that kind of is, that encompasses sidewalks. But then if we say prohibit on sidewalks on these specific streets, are we then saying, even if it's, more than 48 inches, even if there's a little,
No, this is saying prohibit altogether. This is saying, and I'm just throwing it out there for discussion, which is what we're doing, which is the whole reason I threw it out there. Right. So what the idea, my thought is, I believe the problem that we're trying to solve, I think for people who are off of these main streets, they need to have a way to have people know that they're open. And for people on the main streets, I believe their main need is in the off season. Nobody knows they're open. As James said before, he'll poke his hat, somebody will call him and say, what's open? He'll poke his hat out the door and see if he sees signs. So the idea is, I think the problem we're trying to solve for businesses is in the off season, they want a way for people to know they're open, because it's not just taken for granted they're open. I think between Memorial Day and Labor Day, I think we guess everything's open every day because that's the season. So that's why I'm saying to find the balance so that the people in town that don't want to be looking at sandwich boards, and we want to reduce the risk of people having accidents because of sandwich boards, tripping or whatever. If we just say during the busy time, we're just not going to allow it because the businesses don't need it. And so why risk the inconvenience when the businesses don't need it? So that's my reason of saying, proposing that we just say, hey, on these main streets, you don't need it during the busy time of the year because everybody's walking past your store anyway. That they start here, they walk there.
Well, may I jump in when you're
Yes.
done?
I am
Okay.
done, yes.
Well, I do think that when we start guessing and assuming that guessing this about a business and assuming that about a business, that they're open every day, I don't think I think we really need to speak to the business owners. I have one example in mind. So there's a little coffee shop next to Happy Life. It's got I guess it's called the Cafe Espresso, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to the woman who works as the barista there. They're not open every day. They're like under a porch, so it's kind of dark and you can't see if it's open when you're driving by. Most people, I've been told and have seen a couple, actually can't tell from the sidewalk, so they walk up and they look in the window. And I've talked to the barista there, and she's told me they've had a folded sandwich board sign kind of leaning against the post on the porch, not in the sidewalk. And she's said that business increases exponentially when that's there because they're only open, I think, Thursday through Sunday or Friday through Sunday right now or something like that. And their sandwich board sign actually lists like the type of coffee drinks that they have. And people will stop and look and go, oh, look, it's a matcha latte. Let's go in and get one. And that's a business that is not open every day. You would think that it would be. But the public, whether they're driving by or even walking by, has, because of the porch and the dark overhang, has no way to really tell if it's open without walking up there and peeking in the window. They used to have an open, a little neon open sign that they've removed because they were asked to remove it. So, every business has its own vagaries, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I really think it's important that we collect as much feedback from all the individual businesses as we can before we start assuming that they're open every day and everybody knows that they're open. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah,
I think-
I'll go ahead, James.
Oh, I said I think you're right, Laura. I think the one thing you said, which was interesting, was you said it's leaning against some type of a post, and it's not exactly on the sidewalk. And so if it's not on the sidewalk, I think she's okay. I mean, I'd have to be in front of it and look at it, but that's what that's what I was kind of looking for. Some other businesses right around me too, which have the same sort of challenge of like, oh, if they had it tucked at the side of the building and it's not really impeding the sidewalk, but it's still a visible thing that's like, oh, look, they're open. That could be the way around it.
Right, because this is not in on the sidewalk. It's actually in a flower bed.
Yeah.
It's along the side of the porch.
Well,
Yeah,
and what I am proposing here is to prohibit it on sidewalks.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think the words on sidewalk is really the key.
Yeah.
And then, because in the areas where the sidewalk is surprisingly very large, I think that starts to become like flower bed things and courtyard things and stoop things that people can cheat a sign onto, and it's technically not on a sidewalk. So, I mean, I'd have to look, I think you're right that we should just do even if we don't stop in every business and chat with people, just a tour right around that central part of town, just to see the differences of the businesses and their sidewalk areas and how this language would apply
Right.
in as fair of a way as possible to not punish people who have a very narrow sidewalk. And yet, so we can take a look.
I can honestly see somebody saying, and again, this is why I would want to hear it directly from the business owner, but I could see somebody saying, yes, it's true, there are more tourists on the sidewalk Memorial Day to Labor Day, but that is the time that I actually make my money for the entire year.
Right.
And that's critical season for people to know that my business is open.
Right.
right, but if that's their busy time, then people will assume it's open, but and I'm playing devil's advocate because I want to make sure as we put forth a proposal, I want to make sure that we're putting forth a proposal that has balance, that says, hey, we recognize that the townspeople maybe don't want to be looking at all these sandwich boards, and we recognize that there can be more safety hazards in the busy time of the year, and we recognize that in general, a business doesn't need a sign in the busy time of year because they're probably open anyway. They don't need a sign that says, hey, I'm open. And we're saying, let's allow it. I added the word gardens, right? Lawns, gardens, courtyards. If we're not talking about the sidewalk, then they can put it on there. So anyway, I'll leave it on there as an idea, because again, this is a evolving thing. So I'm watching the clock because I know James has to go in 3 minutes. So the last thing we didn't really discuss here is at the bottom, permitting to limit total sandwich board signs. What I don't like, and this is my idea, but the thing I don't like about it, I don't like putting something out there that causes the town to have to do more. But
Right.
but if we did permit it, like I think Iris's concern was from before, you allow it, everybody's going to do it. That's not really true in a lot of cases, but it's possible. So it's possible everybody want to do it, although in reality, probably not. And anyway, since not everybody's open in the off year, and if we say we restrict on sidewalks during the busy season, it's really only off year, not everybody's open anyway. So doing a permitting to limit the total numbers, you don't have an eyesore of seeing 50 in the town, you only seeing 20. Then you get people angry that they didn't hit the permit, they didn't know it was right. So I see a lot of flaws to this idea. I can take it off, or you just note that we're going to say no because we just don't think it's going to be needed. And that's a way of noting that we discussed it. But
I see a lot of flaws to that too, because I think
Right.
if there's the regulation is saying, one per business, not
Right.
here, not there, not bigger than this.
Right.
Because, other than you've got old businesses getting signs, but not new businesses. And because
Right. Yeah.
it's the same thing as the Airbnb situation, which, I'm not a fan of Airbnbs, but at the same time, people are like, okay, now I have to be on a waiting list.
Right.
It doesn't seem equitable. Because, and if we are careful with the recommendations for changing the zoning, with all of the other things that we are discussing, and I agree with you too, it creates a whole other permit process and possible expense for the town to be doing too, managers and bookkeeping and all that sort of thing.
Right. Okay, but I'll note that we at least discussed it, like equitable for the business owners. Okay, so like for business owners, how to clearly state. I know I got a typo there.
And one of the things we could discuss at a future meeting is to just, you're talking about appearance of signs, because there are people that are concerned with the look of things. And we're not the taste police, we're not the morality police, but if a sign has some character or reflects the character of business, it's going to be nicer to look at. I mean, I have to tell you, the ugliest sandwich board sign in town is the Christian Science food pantry sign. It's like, and I understand that they're doing good work. I'm not denigrating that.
Sure.
But it's like, so, and then there are people that have had, custom handmade signs and have blackboard signs and things that actually are not, something that you'd see outside of a gas station on a highway,
Yeah, okay. So before James has to run out the door, when should our next meeting be?
Let me go to my calendar.
Yeah, I have to wake up my other calendar.
You're back after Labor Day? Wait, when
I'm sorry, what was your question, Marie? I am back after Labor Day. What else did you say?
Oh, I was just wondering when you were available.
Well, I'm available. Well, the thing that's funny for me about Tuesdays at 10 is the Housing Oversight Task Force, which does not meet every day does not meet every week these days. But when a Housing Oversight Task Force calls a meeting, it's at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. So that's the issue with me for 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. Mondays, but only the fourth Monday of the month, I have a 10 a.m. meeting to talk about community thermal. So so we could do we've had some of our meetings on Mondays, I think, but some have been on Tuesdays. I don't know what everybody's preference is, but I'm pulling up my calendar. So my thought is two weeks from now would be a good time to meet, because I think the main thing that's happening is the surveying the businesses, which I can't do till after Labor Day.
I'm good with 2 weeks from now.
Okay, so
Tuesdays are probably easier than Mondays,
okay.
or not. I mean, it's my every day is different for me, so I just try.
Yeah.
You're looking at like the 5th or the 6th or something.
Well, do we want to go 3 weeks out and just go to the 12th? I don't know if we all want to meet the day after Labor Day. We could do 3 weeks out, and that might give us a chance to get more of the businesses canvassed.
That's true.
Okay, no worries.
Town board.
Thanks, Adam.
Okay. So James, how do you feel about 3 weeks?
Oh, so we're looking at the 12th?
So September 12th. We could do September 5th.
I can do that.
But September 12th gives us a chance. I think we're going to have more to talk about once we've canvassed more businesses.
Yeah, and I'm fine to join for canvassing around once you figure out when to do that. So
Yeah,
just,
well,
just
Laura,
keep in the loop.
yeah, Lori will be. I'll be back to help. I'm probably driving home actually on the 5th, honestly, but I'm not driving home till probably like 11 o'clock or noon. But I'm probably driving home on the 5th, and so I can take it at 9 o'clock. But in any event, the 12th would work better for me. So
Okay.
between now and then, Lori, and thank you, Lori, very much for taking the lead. So I'm going to write down September 12th at 9 o'clock. So if my housing meeting wants to take the 10 o'clock spot.
9 a.m. on the 12th. Okay.
Yeah, 9 a.m. Is that working for people?
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh,
And then
okay.
Laura, if you do figure out a time you want to look around town at all, just let me know and I can try to work my schedule to join you for part of it.
Okay, great. I'll work on that.
Okay.
So cool. And then I'll connect back up when I get home. So cool. Well, good meeting. I will get meeting notes out from this meeting. So but I think the document is better organized. And so we're still talking about sandwich boards. The next topic I would like to talk about, though, is the signs on the wall of a business, because whether they paint a sign or whether it's like the tattoo parlor that has a sign that truly is beautiful. Lori and I both thought it was great. So anyway, I think that'll be our next topic to take up is signs on walls, but we'll talk about sandwich boards some more based on what we've learned. And then so that's my order of discussing things. Is next meeting sandwich boards and then signs on walls.
Okay, good. I'll sort of keep my eyes open as I go around town in the next few weeks, seeing what I see on walls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
You
John,
can take some.
yeah, there goes John. Oh, I was just asked John if he had any input, and off he went. So, well, but we're good. I think he knows I think he knows that I'm listening if he wants to share. So, anything else before we break?
No, thank you for minding the time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
All right. Goodbye, you two.
Everybody.
See you later.